Attention all sufferers of OCD. What you really need is to be desensitized. We're going to fix that right now. All right, we've popped our trim off the passenger side of the car using the plastic trim removal tools that you saw during the previous episode where we uninstalled and reinstalled the door cladding. So what we have here is a very thin strip of metal. So I don't know if that's aluminum or stainless, but the current plan is to try to remove this, straighten it, and reinstall it. If I can't do that, I'll have to find a replacement. So that is the current plan. And repair any cracking. I don't think that is, I'm not too sure what the deal is there. That looks like it was meant to be that way. I'm not too sure what that was for. It's a little, maybe that's for moisture drainage, maybe? Yeah, that could be what that's for, moisture drainage. I'm making a guess, I really don't know. And so you have these scratches here too. And, lots of dirt, clearly. So we want to clean up this strip, straighten it, reinstall it. And I want to try to get rid of these scratches, which I assume were made by the opening and closing of the door. I'm not sure about that either. But if that's the case, then the door panel would have to be raised a little bit in some fashion. So, all right. So let me work to see if I can remove this. So it may be something as simple as, yeah, the 36-year-old adhesive just doesn't, well, it just doesn't stick anymore. And that is all there is to that. Now, that's off. So now, this part down here where it's smooth, it just has a few gouges and scratches. I think maybe we can polish that out. That's a guess, I really don't know. But I'm going to need to see if I can straighten this out. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that just yet. Maybe something as simple as a body hammer on the bench vise. But all right, so stand by. I'll be right back. All right, we've got our tiny anvil here. Started to work on this, trying to get the ripples out. And I got a small socket there to be used as a roller. And that portion right there under my thumb is smoothed out pretty good. And that's where I started rolling. And I may be able to roll a lot of this out of here. The problem is if you start banging on this thing, so I was tapping on this end with the flat hammer there. And if you rap on it too hard, I think you're going to squash it and it's going to expand and then deform because, this is extremely thin metal. So for right now, I think I'm going to try rolling it with the socket and see how far we get. All right, quick update here. So we were able to remove the aluminum strip. I think this is aluminum now. Now it had gouges and all sorts of problems. It had, it's getting away from me here. It had bends, it had gouges, it had creases, and all sorts of things. I'm trying to get it to sit on this piece of wood. There we go. All right, so here's the problematic area down here. You can still see remnants of some of the bends in it, okay? So now I just used a socket and kind of ran it along there and got most of those out. Now this end was down here near the door jamb, near the door latch where the passenger opens the door. So when you look down, that's the first bit you see, right? I'm going to flip it around and put this end near the hinge. People don't look up that way very much. So the good end, I'm going to switch ends. I'm going to put the good end down here next to the door handle. So that's one little trick. The other trick is we had to sand this thing. Now sanding a microscopically thin piece of metal does seem tricky, and believe me, it is. So we did the same old thing though. We started off, there's my stack of sandpaper over there. This is the technique that I used. Starting off with 220 hold it here with your thumb firmly, and then with your other hand, you would start just below your thumb and draw this way. Don't go back the other way because this is too flimsy. So keep holding there, and then each stroke you lift and then go back to the original place. You lift, go back to the original place like that. All right, and then you move down and move down and move down. Anyway, so I went 220, 320, 600, 800, and 1,000, I think is what I did. So I went to 1,000 and I decided to stop. I'm like, that's good enough, right? So, and it looks pretty good. I think you'll agree that it looks pretty good. Now all we have to do is clean up this trim. So basically soap and water. I need to get these scuffs off of here. So I think I'm going to have to figure out what to do about that next. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using sanding and polishing or maybe a combination of a heat gun. I'm really not sure. Maybe some filler? I don't know. I'm going to have to figure that out and get back to you guys. But for now, this strip is done. So now the next step is to clean this up and get it ready to glue this back on. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to use this Loctite vinyl, fabric, and plastic adhesive. I use my table saw and cut a very thin strip of wood off of here. And then I'll run a bead of that Loctite plastic sealant all the way down here. A very tiny bead. And then we'll place our strip in the channel here. And then we'll take our little strip of wood and place it on top of it. And then we'll apply clamps all along there like that. All right, enough talking and more action. So up next, we're going to clean up this piece of plastic. So this is a little bit of experimentation. So these are marks left behind by the rubber weather stripping on the outside of the door, I think, over time. I'm going to hit this with a little bit of 1500 grit wet dry paper and see what that does to these fine scratches. So let's give that a try and see what happens. Okay, that's what wet sanding with a 1500 grit will get you. Of course, it removes some of the gloss from the plastic, which we knew it would. But it did seem to remove those scratches that are going that way. It is very smooth, though. Now, those are pretty deep. I'm probably going to have to start with a coarse paper and work my way up. So let's start with a 220 and we'll see how it goes here. We're going to move up to 320. All right, I think this is a pretty good process, to be honest with you. I'm just going to treat it like a piece of metal. Show you my progress. So we got these heavy duty scratches here, and I had some down here. I've been working on them, so I was able to get those out. I'm going to continue on in this fashion on down this channel here, and I'll do 220, 320, 400, 600, 800, and so on and so forth. That'll take probably 20 minutes or so, so that's a lot of sanding. And that's kind of like watching paint dry. So I'm going to turn the camera off, and I'll get back to you here just shortly. A little break in the action here. So I actually backed off and went all the way back down to 150. Started there, and then I did 220, 320, 400, and I just finished a wet sand with 600. So I'm doing this surface and this surface here. This has got tons of little grippy ridges in it, and I'm not going to be able to do anything with that other than maybe put some, clean it really well and maybe put some polish down in there or something. So, yeah, is what it is. So, but this smooth surface, I can do something about that at least. So, all right, I'm going to carry on with some finer and finer grit paper, and hopefully we can get this thing to where it will shine and we won't see those scratches. So you can see the remnants of them right there, but you can tell that they're for the most part gone. So, all right, I'll show you more. All right, I'm a little bit astonished, to be quite honest with you. I'm actually quite surprised that turned out as well as it did. So to review, to clean up these scratches that you saw here earlier, which were pretty deep, I sanded this whole area with 150, and then 220, then 320, then 400, then 600. I started wet sanding at 600, went 600, 800, 1,000, and finally 1,500. And then I used 3M rubbing compound on this area, and I got it pretty glossy, but and then I finished up with the Wenol, which is a really, really fine metal polish, and I'm pretty happy with that. It's like 1,000 times better than the way it was. So now that leaves us with cleaning up the rest of this. You got some pretty deep gouges here. I'm not sure. You know what? I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything with that at all, because what you've got these grippy ridges just everywhere. And this back part back here that's really smooth, I'm not sure that I'll go through the entire process that I just went through on the front side, but something similar, reduced. Maybe start off with a 600 and end up at a 1,500. That shouldn't take very long at all. This took about an hour, to be honest with you. All right, a little more cleaning up. I think I'm going to clean up the back side here and then just basically do a wash and get this channel ready to put some adhesive in there and get our refurbished metal strip reinstalled. All right, there you have it. That's as good as I can get it, folks. We got all those deep scratches out of this ridge right here, and we sanded this extensively, and it is very, very smooth. We did, to a lesser extent, we did the same thing on this smooth section as well, and I think that turned out pretty well. And we cleaned up the ridges in here again with some super clean. And up next, I'm going to sand this little channel in here just lightly with a little 220 and get ready to glue up our metal strip. All right, we're getting ready for a glue up job here. So I used the table saw, had a scrap piece of 1x2, and I cut this strip. It's basically 1/4 inch by 1/4 and long enough to spread the entire length of the trim piece. Earlier in the video, I showed you the metal piece, the work we had done there, but I believe I showed you the bottom side with all the nasty bits. That's actually the bottom. The top looks a lot better. So that's what the top looks like. It looks really nice. We're going to get a fine bead of this glue down in the channel, place our metal in there, then we'll place our strip on top of it, and then we'll apply our clamps, and we'll let that set up for a little while. You know, by the end of the day, we could be ready to put this back in the car. All right, we've got our trim piece gluing up. We got it clamped up with our little strip of wood holding down our aluminum trim, and I think that's going to turn out real nice. We're going to go over here and take a look at another problem that is going to come into play for this project. This stuff here, the weather stripping, is, well, it's like that, right? Unacceptable. All right, well, there you have it, folks. Ready to be reinstalled on the car. Our glue job is done. Our thin metal trim strip is reinstalled, and I finished it off with a little coating of Wenol metal polish just to make it pop. So this guy is ready to go back on the car. And you know what? I elected to just not do anything about these little war scars right here. So we're going to leave that alone and put this thing back on the car just as soon as we're done repairing the weather stripping. All right, show you what I'm doing with the weather stripping here. Went and got some Gorilla Glue, super glue, and needed something that sticks really, really fast. So that's what I'm working with here. The rubber, this piece of rubber disconnected from the base piece here. So I just got through gluing the rubber back to it. And now what I'm going to do is put super glue into this little channel a little bit at a time and re-adhere this cloth over the rubber. I'll do it in like 1-inch sections, and I'll poke it in there with a little screwdriver after I apply the glue, and we'll get it all the way down there and get it situated, and then we'll put the trim back in place, because the trim actually sits on top of the cloth and keeps it from coming up. All right, job's all done. We got our trim piece fully refurbished and our metal strip refinished and back in place, and we also have our weather stripping reattached. And just a little bit of super glue is all we needed for that. To be perfectly honest, that little piece of metal trim poking up like that has been bugging me for months, and I'm so glad we got that taken care of. All right, folks, that's all for now. I appreciate you guys stopping by my channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified whenever I release a new video, don't forget to click that little bell down below. You guys take it easy, and remember to enjoy driving your classic Mercedes.